Mitchell has his head up, takes the feet. Oh, my! Donovan! Get that weak stuff out of here!
Now let's bring this back to the Cavaliers and discuss what is on everyone's mind. Jackson, are the Cavaliers actually better without their best players? I'm just kidding. Garland and Mobley will be back in the fold soon, and with how well the Cavs are playing, I kind of understand why some fans are worried about tinkering with what's going on, but what is the key to bringing back both Mobley and Garland? You can pick either one, and we'll start from there.
I think there's been a change on both ends of the court that affect both players in different ways. I think one of the things that this stretch has showed us is that this coaching staff is able to adapt on the fly, which is good. And I think that they will have to adapt again, obviously, because rotations are going to change. The style of play is going to change. You're going to go from kind of a very rangy team to a very small backcourt, big front court with Max Strus out there as well. So that kind of, it's just different personnel, and different personnel require different things. I think it's a lot easier to get into the mindset of, okay, we need to be emphasizing the 3-pointers that we're taking and the movement when you've been sitting at home for a month watching this play out. I think it's a lot easier to get buy-in from that standpoint, not saying that Darius or Evan weren't bought into what the Cavs were trying to do. But one of the things that I think is always important to keep in mind is that, especially with young players, and Darius is still 23, which is still the same age as Greg Porter Jr., and, he's still a young guy. When you talk about players that are that age, a lot of times the skills that get you into the NBA or into a lottery pick aren't the skills that you need to take the next step as a team and as a player. Not saying that they both need to just radically alter their game, but they will need to come in and kind of adjust how they play to how this team's currently playing, because you can't see this incredible run that the Cavs are on and say, nothing needs to change about my game. Everyone needs to adjust to me, because clearly things weren't working beforehand. And I have faith that they can do that, because I think that they're both incredibly talented basketball players. And I think they're both willing to do what's best for the team. And I think it's a lot easier to do that when you see that, hey, this actually does work. I'm going to have to adjust how I've been playing. And I think they'll do that.
Yep. This was a proof of concept if I've ever seen one. I don't doubt that both Garland and Mobley want to buy into whatever's going to help the team the most. And I think this team's culture, I know culture gets thrown around a lot, but it seems like they're going to hold each other accountable. And when Garland and Mobley do return, they're going to try and play similar to how they're playing now. There's going to be necessary adjustments. But I do think that it's important to note that the way the Cavs are currently playing is more or less how they wanted to play all season, how they talked during the offseason and what their goal was. They tried to play this way, but they ran into, I think, a combination of growing pains, some constant injuries. I mean, even before the big injuries to Garland and Mobley, you had hamstrings, shooting hand, just a whole bunch of different stuff that was going on.
Allen missed the first 8 games, something like that.
And he was far from himself when he returned.
Yes.
And on top of all that, they just had some poor shooting, which I'm not even saying it's shooting luck, but they just weren't shooting the ball very well. So this is how they've always wanted to play.
Sam Merrill.
Yeah, they were. It's true. They didn't.
They
hadn't discovered Sam Merrill. Jackson had discovered Sam Merrill, but the Cavs.
Yeah, I did.
The Cavs still hadn't figured it out.
Right.
But this is how they wanted to play. They didn't stumble into this style accidentally. I've seen a lot of people. I'm becoming the JB defender, but I've seen a lot of people saying like JB thinks he's smarter than he really is, and he accidentally found out how to play modern basketball. It's like this is how they wanted to play. It's just now finally coming into shape.
Right. In the preseason, he said that he wanted his team to take 53s.
Yeah.
They were fully healthy.
They're close to it. I think they're they're 43, 44 threes a game, something like that off the top of my head.
They took 30 something last night.
So the numbers could have changed, but
they stopped shooting at the third quarter. Yeah. Sam didn't
Out of
want to rub it
respect.
in. Yeah.
Sam could have broke an NBA record. He has the does he have the G League record for threes?
I don't know. He has 10 in a game, which is a lot.
Okay. I know he has the Summer League record. He's got to be close to the G League record.
I mean,
if he can get that NBA record, hey, how many people can say that? Nobody.
The trifecta, really.
Yeah. But no, when it comes to getting Garland and Mobley back in the fold, I do think some of the concerns are funny when you talk about, like, is this offense going to work? Because, like, listen, Darius Garland is a lot better offensively than Okoro and Dean Wade combined. I would even say Mobley. Yeah. Even Mobley is much better than both of those players combined. So it's like, I get that the fit isn't the same, but it's like they're playing this way with Okoro and Wade out there. You put Garland back into the fold, one of the best floor generals. You put Mobley in there, who is a very skilled offensive player. He may not be all-star caliber with his offense, but he's still a very good offensive player. He brings a different dynamic to that. And so they should be able to make it work. The key is going to be moving the ball. And that, again, starts with Garland. He's near the top of the league in dribbles per touch. And I mean, he's the point guard, so it's understandable, but he needs to get that ball out of his hands quicker. There needs to be motion off the ball. And really, the return of Garland just raises their ceiling offensively, I think. So I'm not overly concerned. There's going to be an adjustment period, but I think that this is a good thing. If I can be bold, I think the return of Garland and Mobley is going to be an overwhelmingly good thing.
One thing I will say is that, like, the Cavs' problems, especially like last year, even in the regular season, they didn't come with the 5 guys out there on the court together. It came when one of them would sit, they would kind of fall apart. Like, the bench didn't really have an identity. So I think from that standpoint, it's not really like, I think it's easy to kind of overblow it to a certain degree because, yes, they do need to adjust, but it's also like the starting lineup was pretty fine for the most part, especially like even in the Knicks series, the starting lineup, they won those minutes with the starting lineup out there. It's just they got murdered when, they had to face Obi Toppin. That's when things went off the rails. So, like, there will be an adjustment and there will be patience, but like they can still, all these bench units are still going to play the same style. I think if you wanted to, one thing I think is worth keeping an eye on is how Caris LeVert fits into all of this. I think Caris LeVert has been a big beneficiary of being like the lead ball handler in a lot of these bench lineups. So how does that look when he's going to be paired with, because Garland or Mitchell are going to be out there all the time. So he's going to have to be playing with one of them. Not saying that he hasn't been okay or good with them. But I think it's worth, that's something to kind of like, if you wanted to keep an eye on something, that's one thing I think I would keep an eye on.
Yeah. And maybe this will be an actual hot take. It's something that I mentioned in my most recent video, but like offensively speaking, Merrill fits better next to one of Garland or Mitchell than LeVert does. LeVert's a better player. Maybe we see Merrill in those minutes a little bit more. I don't know how the rotation is going to be split up. It's a whole mess. It's an impossible job to figure out where they're going to allocate those minutes.
I can figure it out.
You got it?
Yeah,
just play Sam Merrill.
Just play Sam Merrill. No, I think you go with a 9-man rotation. I think you go the starting 5, and then you go Merrill, LeVert, Okoro, Wade. And I think if Wade decides he just wants to do cardio out there, which sometimes he does,
then you get Niang.
Then you got to put Niang.
Niang will do cardio, he'll shoot the ball, and he'll do some yoga poses if we're lucky.
He'll definitely do stuff. And it's he's playing so good right now. It
really is.
Yeah,
he's been great.
It pains me to say that.
He defended one of the Magic players in isolation yesterday and came up with a steal. It was great. I think it might have been Cole Anthony. I don't remember.
I missed that.
Oh, well, I'll make sure you see it when we're done.
I'm joking.
To wrap up my takes here on the return of Garland and Mobley, all of the lessons they have learned, it's going to remain. Whether that be them playing this exact same style with the bench lineups, or really, I think what we've seen from Allen, even like, hey, it's really good that we've seen that Allen can actually operate with the ball above the break. and do some things. It's really good that Allen is like punishing drop defenders, not only just with passing and attacking the basket, but he's starting to shoot from the mid-range too. And if Evan Mobley isn't going to take those jump shots, maybe you just swap them. Mobley's in the dunker spot and Allen the one operating from the elbow now, because traditionally we've seen it the other way around. So I think the Cavs have learned a lot of things here, and it's really just going to come down to applying those to the right situations.
Right. And I think there's a lot of ways to minimize those spacing concerns if you have other off-ball movement, which is something that we've seen, especially with those bench units. Thank you, Sam Merrill. Where when there is that movement, you can't, like, you know, if Mobley's screening for Darius Garland, who's coming off a screen, like Mobley's defender can't be in the restricted area, because then, you know, Garland's getting a wide open 3. So it's like, there are ways to minimize all of this. It's just, can everyone buy into that?
Yep. And the another thing that I wanted to say too is that, and you touched on this, like, we have a sample size of this core 4 working really, really well. Even in the playoffs, which was their most embarrassing moment, a lot of that came down to a lack of depth. A lot of it just came down to Darius Garland playing very poorly for much of the series. Donovan Mitchell not really playing that great. And so, listen, you take this core 4, you add Max Strus, you add a Sam Merrill, you space the floor. I think this can work. I think we've even seen at the beginning of this year sporadically, but there's that Hawks game where they just beat the brakes off of them. Hawks might not be a very good team, so I don't know how much you take from that, but they've had moments where this core looks really, really good together. I know they have overlapping talents,
even like the Nuggets game, the both Warriors games, which, speaking,
and that was before the Warriors really went off the rails, to be fair, but it may have been a sign of what
I'll leave that to you, and I'm very sorry about your Warriors.
Hey,
that's another pod,
I got off the bandwagon years ago. Shout out to Fansided for my start.
But yeah, that's, like, I think kind of one thing that all those games have in common is Darius Garland playing good. So I think one of the things that's kind of, we don't really talk about it, is I don't, like, Darius Garland wasn't right at the beginning of the year. Maybe there was a hand issue. Like, the dude was turning it over, like, every time he had the ball.
Turning over, not shooting the
and
ball.
Not shooting.
He was not playing like the Darius Garland we know. And for that entire last year, I think most of us said, hey, this team kind of goes the way Darius Garland goes. And so the fact that now we're talking about, well, not us, but some people are saying, like, they need to move on from Darius Garland. Is bringing Darius Garland going to mess all this up? It's like, we know how, don't forget how talented Darius Garland is, and don't forget how talented Evan Mobley is. If you can't figure out a way to make it work with those two guys on the floor, that's a bigger problem than whatever they're doing.
Right. And that's what, was leading to the conversations about JB getting fired when they were 13-12.
Yeah.
So, we've been there.
And we might be there again. Who knows? But